Hi, I'm Jason Lay, and on behalf of the organization Better Drinking Culture, I'm here to guide you through a series of training videos that will equip you with everything you need to know to be effective and successful while volunteering at the festival. Regardless of where you're assigned or what you're pouring, once you arrive to your booth, the first thing you should do to ensure that you have a smooth and successful evening is take inventory of everything at your booth. Let's talk tools of the trade and start with beer. Bottle opener. Pretty self-explanatory. Got a can? Fingernail. Over to wine. Some form of a wine key corkscrew, a calibrated pour spout, which we'll talk about later, and at the end of the night, a stopper may come in handy. And then over here to spirits, pretty simple. Use your hands. If your product requires to be chilled, you'll get a bus tub full of ice, one of two types of carafe for rinse water, a dump bucket for said rinse water, a garbage can, and some paper towels to keep everything nice and clean. In addition to the product you're pouring, your booth may also be equipped with complimentary or supplemental information such as sales collateral, signage, or swag that the brand or distributor would like you to pass out to the guest. All of this information is going to help you better inform the guest so that they have a more enjoyable experience. If you're not one of the lucky ones to have that information to help you describe the product when you get to your booth, you can do two things. One, read the actual product, or use your phone and Google it. Whether you have that sales collateral to reference, a well-informed label to read, or you've had to Google it, there are three pieces of information that you're going to want to know that guests are probably going to ask about. One, the style of what you're pouring. Two to three words to describe its flavor profile. And three, its alcohol strength. Keep your booth stocked, organized, clean, and dry. If you're pouring 4 different options, my strong recommendation is to keep them organized by column. And that goes not only for what's in your bus tub full of ice or maybe next to you on the table, but also with unopened additional product behind you or under your table. So for example, if I'm pouring these 4 beers, I would line up those 4 cases of additional product in the exact same order under the table, so I don't have to guess where it is when I need it. Now, in terms of open product in location, you should only have 1 container of each option open at a time. And that is simply so that the rest of your product can stay either submerged and chilling in ice or at the ready. You don't want to open everything you have available because it is inevitably going to end in product waste. It doesn't help me work any faster or smarter if the things I need to regularly grab are out of my reach. So for example, if I'm rinsing guests' glasses and I have to reach over product to get the water, and then if I have to come all the way over here to fill up their glass and then dump it, all I'm doing is creating more work for myself. If I make a mess, which is bound to happen, and I've got my paper towel all unraveled over here and over there, it's going to make cleaning up the mess that much more frustrating and difficult and time consuming. When the show gets busy, you are not going to have any time to clean up after yourself. So everything that you're using should be comfortably in arm's reach and convenient to you. And lastly, as soon as you pour off and empty a container, make sure that thing goes away. The best place to store it is in the box or case from which it came. And then you of course have to replace it. So you move everything in the ice closer to you and you add the new can or bottle into the ice away from you. That way, Whatever is closest to you is always going to be the coldest, ready for you to pour next. Let's revisit the official festival glassware. Guests are either going to bring to you a beer glass or a wine glass. Also, remember that spirits are going to be poured into these little 3/4 ounce communion cups. But back to the beer and wine glasses. These are interchangeable, meaning that you can pour wine into the beer glass or beer into the wine glass. What you'll notice when you see these glasses is they are etched with the official festival logo. What's particularly important is at the bottom of the logo is the volume of 2 ounces. And at the top of that logo designates 4 ounces. This is going to come in particularly helpful in just a moment. All of these options, whether you're pouring beer, wine, or spirits, require a predetermined specific amount of tickets for a standard pour. Again, whether you're pouring beer, wine, or spirits, and someone asks for a double pour, that's going to require double the amount of the tickets for that particular option. And those ticket amounts are going to be listed on a little placard or sign at every single booth. So when a guest walks up and tells you what they'd like to drink, there are going to be 2 things that you never do with their glass. The first is touch it by the rim with your grubby little hands. Why? Because their mouth has been on it all night, and that is super unsanitary. The second thing you're never going to do is allow any vessel you're pouring with or from to come into contact with a guest glass. So you would never do this. Unsanitary. For beer, the standard pour, regardless of what you're pouring or the ticket amount, the standard pour for beer is going to be 2 ounces. So that means a double pour is going to be 4 ounces. And a friendly reminder that on each beer glass and wine glass, at the bottom of the logo designates a 2-ounce pour, and at the top of the logo is a 4-ounce pour. Let's crack a beer. So I'm going to pour this beer to the bottom line of the etched logo on the festival glass. At a 45-degree angle, without touching the glass, nor did I pick it up from the rim of the glass. Cheers. And for demonstration purposes, let's say a guest walks up to you and they have a little bit left over from their last drink. We're going to dump that. We're going to rinse it out. And let's say the next guest wants a full pour. So again, for beer, standard pour is 2 ounces, full pour is 4. And the 4-ounce line on our beer glass, as well as our wine glass, is conveniently marked at the top of the festival logo. And again, pouring at a 45-degree angle, not touching the rim of the glass or the vessel to the glass, and that is what a full double pour of beer looks like. Cheers. For some of you pouring beer, your booth may not have cans or bottles. Instead, you might be pouring draft beer from what's called a jockey box. What you want to do is place your glass directly under that faucet and open that tap handle with your dominant hand fully and quickly so that the beverage, the beer, comes straight out of that jockey box. Otherwise, if you open it slowly or close it slowly, all you're going to get in your glass is foam. So if you are working with a jockey box, tilt that glass at 45 degrees underneath the faucet, open that handle fully, quickly, fill that glass, and then close that tap handle as quickly as you opened it, and you'll prevent the foam. Next, let's move on to wine. If you're pouring wine, you're probably going to be using a calibrated pour spout. This is calibrated to a standard pour for wine, which is 1 ounce, making a double pour of wine 2 ounces. There's going to be some exceptions to bottles that aren't compatible with these calibrated pour spouts, primarily champagne and sparkling wine. So if you get a bottle where the calibrated pour spout doesn't work, you can probably very easily give yourself a marker on the wine glass with a booth next to you who is pouring wine. And again, remember, a standard pour for wine is 1 ounce, which equals 1 pull from the calibrated pour spout, or a 2-ounce double pour, which is going to go up to the bottom of the etched logo on the festival glass. All right, let's pour some wine. Before I do, I want to point out that my wine should be stocked on my table, in my display, the same as beer, and then the same goes for spirits. Always fully stocked with labels facing out toward the guest. Let's start with an easy twist-off bottle. That's not going to require a corkscrew or a wine key. But please don't throw this away. Start a little pile, maybe put them in a box behind the table, because you may need them at the end of the night to recap any semi-consumed bottles of wine. So with the cap off, you're going to insert the calibrated pour spout into the bottle with one shove. And then when you pour the wine, remember to never grab the guest glass by the rim. Tilt that at a nice little 45-degree angle and turn this bottle straight upside down and pour until the calibrated pour spout clicks and the wine stops. That's it. Moving on to a bottle of red with a foil cap, or a cap covered in foil. What you're going to do is first use the blade of your corkscrew to circle around the rim of the glassware, which is going to cut the foil, and then you're going to use that blade, being careful not to send yourself to the hospital, and remove the foil that's covering the cork. Get rid of that guy. You're not going to need him again. Put your blade away, open up the corkscrew, and it's going to be inserted directly straight down into the center of the cork. You're always going to keep one hand firmly gripped on the bottle while you twist in the corkscrew with a little bit of force. This corkscrew is going to go all the way down flush into the cork. Then you're going to take, depending on the style of wine key you have and the bottle you're working with, you're going to take one of these teeth or lip in the wine key and balance them on the top of the bottle, holding it in place, and then confidently lift up on the handle in one motion. You may, if it doesn't come out in one pull, you may have to repeat until you can get that wine cork out. Bingo. And then let's remember to insert our calibrated pour spout and then pour a standard pour of wine, which is 1 ounce. That's it. And remember, if they'd like a double or a 2-ounce pour, we're going to just repeat that one more time. Cheers. And lastly, let's pour some spirits. Reminder that you're not going to be using calibrated pour spouts on bottles of spirits because the standard pour is only a 1/2 ounce. And generally speaking, we're going to be using these adorable little plastic communion cups, which are 3/4 of an ounce. So again, a standard pour for spirits is a 1/2 ounce, which is about 2/3 of the way up on this. If they're looking for a double, my recommendation would be to pour them twice, because a double in one of these is obviously going to go over 3/4 of an ounce in this little communion cup. So we'll see if I can nail it. Again, we don't ever want to touch, as easy and convenient as it may seem, the vessel to the cup. And I think I did a pretty good job. So that is about a 1/2 ounce pour in a 3/4 ounce communion cup for spirits. There is going to be a caveat if you're pouring spirits. Some booths may be offering mixed cocktails or something that complements the straight shot of spirit. If that's the case, your booth is already going to come provided with pre-mixed components that all you're going to need to do is pour those into either the festival beer glass, a festival wine glass, and then do the same with the spirit. You pour the straight spirit into the little communion cup so that you know you're giving them a 1/2 ounce, and then that straight spirit gets added into the pre-mixed components of that cocktail. Before moving on, friendly reminder that I mentioned earlier, you could also be pouring an alcohol-free option. So I'd be remiss if I didn't stress how important it is to have an alcohol-free choice on a night out when you're drinking. So if that is the case, whether it's beer, wine, or spirits, and it is alcohol-free, the same volume of standard pour and double pour still applies. Okay, we've talked about how to be successful at the technical aspects of your role, but now let's talk about how to get the support you might need. Find out where the locations are of your nearest help desk, where you can also find security, locations of hand washing stations, the nearest bathroom, and probably the table where they're distributing your festival beer glass and wine glasses. I've been talking about it a lot, so let's finally address that QR code that will be located on your table. That QR code, when scanned with your smartphone, is going to open a help desk request form. In that form, which I promise you is going to be very self-explanatory, is going to be all of the steps you need to take in order to request basic, non-critical, non-emergency help. If you need your ice bucket refreshed, if you've been pouring all day and your ice is melting and it's turning into an ice bath, you can request a refresher. You can request the team to come by and dump your dump bucket or refill your rinse water, empty your garbage, or most importantly, bring you more product. When you log on to that QR code and you get to the help request form, it gives you the option and the opportunity to request more product. Now, here's the catch. Be proactive. You are not going to have time to ask for more product when you have a line of 30 people waiting for what you're serving. Nor is the support team going to be able to navigate the hundreds of exhibitors, the thousands of brands that they have to keep restocked if you ask for something after you've run out of it. So again, I cannot stress this enough. Request more of it before you run out. If you have a guest who approaches your booth and they're either teetering or blown way past intoxication, your job is to make sure that that person is taken care of, that their safety, your safety, and the safety of every guest at the festival is accounted for. You can use that help request form to give a physical description of whoever might be in need of additional support. It is not your job to tackle that person to the ground or to kick them out of the festival. Use the resources that you have in your hand and request help when needed. Okay, and the last thing I'll say about the QR code in the help request form is that please know the difference between what is and is not an emergency. So please be smart, use your head and your best judgment, and ask for help when it's needed. Okay, friends, thanks for sticking with me. We're almost home. Let's talk about shift change and what to do at the end of the night. So, for all of you who are not working the last shift of the night, shift change looks like this. You set up your replacement for success. You do not leave your booth until your replacement relieves you. And while you're waiting for them to relieve you, it'd be a good look on you if you stocked everything you're pouring. If you made sure the ice was refreshed, your dump bucket was taken care of, your water was refilled, and everything behind you, the empties, the cases of full product that should be organized underneath you, are stocked and ready to go. Last but not least, let's talk about what you need to do if you're working the last shift of any night of the festival, and for everyone, what you have to do in order to check out at the end of your shift. What many of you won't see at the end of the night after you're long gone or after the festival is done at the end of the weekend is an amazing support team who comes in and resets everything for the next day or the end of the festival season. So here's what we can do to help them out. Basically, we just want to make sure everything is clean and ready for them to come and collect. If it's in ice, leave it there in the ice as is. Don't even worry about it. But if we're talking about wine or spirits, we're going to think about them in two categories: opened and half consumed, and still sealed and untouched. For anything that has been partially consumed and still open, that's where those caps are going to come back into play. We're going to simply seal them up, and then we're going to start a neatly organized pile so that crew can come by and collect these. Same thing with the wine. We're going to remove the calibrated pour spouts. We're going to recap them, and then we're going to organize them as well. So anyone coming by our table knows that these have been opened and are partially consumed. For anything on the table that has been untouched and still sealed, those bottles need to go behind and or under your table in the box that they showed up in. For all of the other miscellaneous stuff, and trust me, there's going to be a lot of it. If there are random drinks that find their way to your table that are half consumed, we want to dump everything. Get it out of there. Same for the water, if your dump bucket has the room. Random glassware, we want to start collecting it. We want to make some nice piles because, again, there's a crew who's going to come around and take care of everything. We'll gather all of our tools. If you have any wine stoppers, you can use those instead of the cork. Otherwise, it would be a good idea to save a couple of the corks. So we've got a wine stopper. We've capped our wine over here. We've organized all of our tools. And then we're almost ready to leave our booth. And then lastly, this apron, which you should have been wearing your entire shift, needs to go back to the volunteer checkout room. Same room probably that you checked in at. So it is only at that point when you return your apron that you will get credit for your time as an ambassador and be able to cash in on the perks that we promised you. And it should absolutely go without saying, but sincerely, without your help and your time dedicated to this festival, it literally wouldn't happen. So to all of you sharing your time with us, thank you. Cheers.